back here to the Dev Realm, and today we're going to be starting a new series. In the series of today we are going to basically create a nice and easy UI in Unreal Engine. So I have created this very basic UI here in Inkscape. So we're going to basically be using this as a base. I'm going to put all those files in the description, so you're going to be able to download all the files before you start the project. I'm not going to explain how to use Inkscape. This is just going to be in Unreal Engine, so eventually I'm going to pop up Inkscape just to copy some text or export some boxes, but I'm going to leave all those boxes inside the folder structure so you can actually download it. So we're going to be doing this UI here, as you can see, and let's get started. So the idea of this asset is that we're gonna basically make it so it's reusable. So what happened, the problem with Unreal Engine that you guys probably are right now is that every time you start in a new UI, it always looks very janky and you don't have a nice and easy way to copy and paste and reuse that UI. So what I'm going to be doing here is creating this UI here that will be fully reusable for any kind of game you want to use. I'm not sure if I'm going to create like all those talent stuff working, but we're going to be creating at least the boxes and the base, so you should be able to create those yourself. We're not going to do any kind of quest logic in here. This is just UI only. Alright, so without wasting too much time, let's get started. So I'm going to create here, I'm going to launch the game. By the way, this is done in Unreal 5.3. I think by the end of this video Unreal 5.4 will be available, so I may have to switch and update the project, but that shouldn't affect anything related to the UI. But anyway, so once now the engine is booting and running, which it is right now, I'm just gonna pause the video and then I'm gonna resume. Alright guys, yeah, so my engine is up and running. So for this project, you can or create a blank project or create a third-person project. I'm just gonna go ahead and create a third-person project just because I like to have something that I can run and check if the UI, if I need to do a UI in game. I'm gonna call this UI tutorial, right? And you can call whatever you want. And I'm just gonna create the project. While we create the project, I'm just gonna go back in here and basically I'm gonna create a folder on my downloads in here called UI. So I'm gonna create another folder in here, and this, by the way, is gonna be available for you to download, so don't worry about this. You don't have to do this step. I'm just gonna show you what I'm gonna do here. And the first windows that I'm gonna do here is basically a text input. So we're gonna start for all the inputs first, and then we're gonna work our way to buttons and text and messages and all that stuff. As you can see, I have a primary, a secondary color, a tertiary color, and a quaternary color. But anyway, so let's start it. So the first thing we're gonna do here is I'm just gonna ungroup this, and I'm gonna bring this data right here. I'm gonna group it because I just want to export this little guy here. Right, so I'm gonna select this, and I am gonna export this, and I am gonna put this file inside, so just this PC. I'm just gonna go to where is it, download here, UI, and I'm gonna move this file right here, and I am gonna create another folder, and it's gonna be called inputs, right? And I am gonna call text field BG, right? So I'm just gonna do some Ctrl Z in here, and there you go. Nice. So the next thing that we gotta do here right now is basically on this folder. Now we have a folder called inputs, and if I open up, I have just that thing that I exported. So by the way, Unreal Engine always, the right way of doing this is just you always import textures with capital T dash. The T stands for texture. Otherwise, it's just the way that you follow the structures in Unreal. But anyway, so the next thing that we're gonna do here right now is that if you press play, nothing gonna happen. That's fine. I am gonna, of course, just play on a new window just because I prefer it this way. I'm gonna right click and I'm gonna create a new folder, and this folder is gonna be called UI, right? Or we could call the Dev Realm UI. The Dev Realm UI. There you go. So we're gonna open up the UI, and in here, the way I like to structure this is that every UI that I created, including buttons, they always extend from the same class. And I'm gonna show you why we're gonna do this. So the first thing you're gonna do is right click, and you're gonna go to user interface. We're gonna create here, and I'm gonna call WBP, and this is gonna be the Dev Realm UI base. All right. You don't need to call the Dev Realm UI, you can call your own UI name. It's just because we're using this as a base. But anyway, and now I'm gonna create another blueprint, widget blueprint, right? And this time we have all classes. And in here I'm gonna search for WBP, the Dev Realm UI base. I'm gonna select that, and I'm gonna call WBP button, right? Or actually, input field. Right, now I'm gonna right click, I'm gonna create another folder called widgets, right? And I'm gonna move all those widgets inside, and inside this folder widget, I'm gonna create another folder called inputs, because we have buttons, you know, it's just to make it more organized and stuff. Move that. Right, cool. Now the next thing we're gonna do here, we're gonna open up this input, right? And here we have a blank input, and then we have the Dev Realm UI base. Right, so if I go back to the design doesn't necessarily has a label, right? But what we're gonna do here is we're gonna add a label inside our game, because otherwise it can look confusing to the user. I prefer to have stuff with a label on it. So the next thing that we're gonna do here, basically, is that we need to create the structure of our input, right? So the first thing that we're gonna do here is that we're gonna go back to this, and we're gonna right click, we're gonna search for a horizontal box, right? I'm gonna drag and drop a horizontal box here. Actually, it's a vertical box. And a vertical box, we're gonna add a text, and we are gonna add a button, or actually input, right? Or text field. I think I'm going to call text field. Text box is just a text. Text. I think it's this one here. Editable text. There we go. Let me double check if it's the input text box. There you go. Sorry, it's called text box. That's the one we want to use. Right, so first thing, as you can see, everything looks weird. We don't have the right textures and everything. So the way we can, the first thing we're gonna do, we're gonna select on the text. And here you can change where you want text to be. Normally, you always click on the left, right? So you always leave the text here on the left. We're gonna add a spacer between those two, and the spacer is basically just gonna give us a quick gap, so I'm just gonna put 10 is too much, maybe 5, there we go. And now we can actually put the texture in here, right? But let's just import the texture, and then I'm gonna show you the other way I'm gonna do this. So normally you will just drag and drop your image right here. The problem with this is that if you come in the future and say, okay, I want to change this button now to red, I want to change this whole palette to blue or something like this, I think what's going to happen is you're going to have to replace every single reference, and that's really tedious to do this. So a way that I come up here in previous tutorials, or even on my own assets that I have, is that you go to the parent class here, right? And we're gonna go to the Dev Realm. I'm gonna create here another folder, and I'm gonna call variables, right? And I'm gonna create here blueprint structure, right? And I'm gonna call SD inputs, right? There you go. I'm gonna open up the SD inputs, and in here I am gonna create a background, and the background is going to be a texture 2D, all right? Nice, and make sure it's an object reference. Compile and save. Right, so there's two ways you can actually do this, or you can add this variable straight away in here, right? So you can just go to the Dev Realm UI, the base one, and you just add that variable in that, or we create another one which is gonna basically hold all the variables and settings for us. So that's the way I like to do. So I'm gonna create here another variable, and in here is going to be st main UI settings. I'm just gonna call main UI settings. I'm gonna open up the settings, and in here I'm gonna call input, right? And this is going to be st input, the one we just created, right? This guy here, we're gonna put it right here. Great. Now there's one thing here that I want to do as well, is that I'm gonna create a data table. That I'm gonna handle this with a data table. So I'm gonna go back in here on this folder. I'm gonna right click. I'm gonna go to miscellaneous. I'm gonna create here, where is it? Data table, right? Here, make sure you put this st main UI settings. All right, open that. I'm gonna call dt UI settings. Nice. I'm gonna open up this guy. I'm gonna create a new row, and the new row here, we just gonna call the name of the row, I don't know, RPG purple. It doesn't matter how you call it. And now here is gonna ask for input. So now it's time. Let's input. Let's bring our texture here. So I'm gonna create another folder called texture. I'm gonna create another folder called inputs. And now I can go back to my inputs here, right? Inside the UI inputs, and I'm just gonna drag and drop this guy right there. Cool. So this guy is gonna be here. Nice. Now, just for testing, right? Just for testing, you don't need to do this if you don't want to. Just want to see how does the input looks right now. So I have my input here selected. So I'm gonna go back in here and put it right there. Let's see how does it look. As you guys can see, the input looks alright. Doesn't look too bad. It looks quite decent. And I'm just gonna put here desired, and maybe custom size and screen. Just gonna put like 600, and there you go. So that's gonna be the input. There's one thing here you can do as well, which is in the image, draw as an image here, so it looks way better. So on this part, you make sure you click draw as an image, because otherwise it's just gonna have a, like as a box, it's gonna have weird pixel thing. So make sure it's an image. But anyway, so let's make this dynamic. All right. So I'm gonna clear this data. This is gonna be the default one. I'm gonna go back here to my main widget, the parent class, this guy here, and in here we're gonna add a new variable called UI settings selection. All right, and in here I'm gonna select data table row handle. Make sure it's public, compile and save. And in here it's gonna basically ask for the data table. So we only have created one data table, which is the data table UI settings. And in here it's gonna ask out which row do you want to use. And we're gonna use the RPG purple. Alright? Now this will basically, what I'm gonna do here on the pre-construct get, I'm gonna break this guy. And in here is gonna give me the row information. Now we have to extract that row data. So to do that, we're gonna basically get row data. No, get data table. Get row. Yes, get data table row. That's the one. Here's gonna ask for the row. I'm just gonna put it in there. Here's gonna ask for which data table we want to use. Just select this guy, and here is the variable we can use. So I'm gonna promote this to a variable called UI settings. All right. Make sure it's public. Okay. Now this should be everything you needed. So I'm just gonna comment and say load the default UI settings. Cool. So we're gonna compile and save this. Now on the input field here, as you can see, this extends from this parent class. So I'm gonna open up here on the graph. Now here's very important thing. If you, for example, get UI settings, you are gonna get something that's not fully loaded because this hasn't called the parent function yet. So what I'm gonna do here is gonna right click on this parent function, and I'm gonna add call to the parent function. Now I'm gonna plug this one here. Now I should have access to the UI settings. From here, what we can actually do is something really easy, but I'm just gonna show you how to do this. So to change this dynamically here, right? What we can do is I'm just gonna edit this to input text, and here I'm gonna change to label. Label. And in the input section, I'm gonna get input, drag and drop here, and here I'm gonna set the styling, set style. There we go. Now in here it's gonna ask for what style do you want to set, right? So what I want to do here is I want to make an editable style, and here's gonna basically ask me for a bunch of information. Let me see if I can maybe set the back. Yeah, that is not gonna work, but anyway. So what we can do here, right? For the background, we can make one. Sorry, make this item here, right? So here, it's good. Remember, we want to draw the image, no tiling. We don't have an image size, we don't have a tint, we only have here the image. We don't care about this stuff yet. So I'm just gonna break this. I am gonna break the input. Alright, and I'm gonna plug it right there. Now as you can see, there is some other stuff that we can actually plug. So I'm gonna plug the same one on hover and on focus and on read only, right? And that should be everything we need. Now let's see if this is gonna actually work right. So now if I compile, nothing gonna change. That's because we're doing stuff on the event construct. I'm just gonna plug this on the pre-construct. That should work and change our UI style. For some reason is not changing. Let's have a look if you have the row selected. You got the purple selected, we got the settings created. I'm just gonna make sure it doesn't need to replicate. Input, yes, we don't have an image attached to this yet. So we're gonna go back in here, we're gonna drag and drop this image, go back, compile and save, and there you go. As you can see, we added the image back to the UI settings, and it already reflected on here. So as you can see, you can apply this to do all sorts of stuff. You can change colors and do all sorts of things in here. So I think that's pretty much what we need for this first part of the series. Is getting quite big. So what I'm gonna do here, I'm gonna pause this because this was mainly the setup of this project, and then in the next one we're gonna be loading the font. So once again, thank you very much for watching, and I see you guys in the next one.